Today is Saturday, May 3rd. As generative AI tools become more widely used, teens are now facing a growing, disturbing trend. We're talking about so-called deepfake nudes, fake sexually explicit images of real people, often minors, created using AI tools. In a new survey, the nonprofit Thorn found 1 in 8 teens knows someone who has been targeted. It comes as Congress just this week passed the bipartisan bill called the Take It Down Act, addressing intimate images, real or fake, posted online without consent. Coming up, we'll talk about that policy change, but also the very real risks kids are facing right now and what families, schools, and tech companies could do to better respond. Melissa Strobel is the Vice President of Research and Insights at Thorn, a nonprofit dedicated to protecting kids from online sexual exploitation. She explains just how prevalent this problem is right now, why anyone can be vulnerable to it, and what to say to kids before a crisis happens. Welcome to the Newsworthy Special Edition Saturday, when we sit down with a different expert or celebrity every Saturday to talk about something in the news. Don't forget to tune in every Monday through Friday for our regular episodes, where we provide all the day's news in 10 minutes. I'm Erica Mandy. It's now time for today's Special Edition Saturday. Melissa Strobel, thank you so much for joining us here on the Newsworthy.
Thanks for having me.
So I know one of Thorn's recent reports found 1 in 8 teenagers, ages 13 to 17, personally know someone who's been victimized by so-called deepfake nudes. So first, can you describe for our audience, what does that mean, a deepfake nude? And what was your reaction to the results of this latest survey?
Put simply, these are explicit images of someone that have been created in part using generative AI technologies. You're spot on with that data point that 1 in 8 of the young people that we spoke with already knew of someone who had been personally targeted using this type of technology. And unfortunately, we actually saw as many as 1 in 17 had personally experienced this type of abuse. Now, that for a moment feels like a small number, but as we sat with that data and we thought more about it, we put it in context to what 17 looks like in our lives and in our kids' lives. And that is, honestly, that's smaller than the average high school classroom. That's probably fewer kids than are on your local soccer team. And so the reality that this is hitting every community and the likelihood that the young people in your lives may be navigating in this issue in some way, shape, or form is very real. And that came across clearly in the survey.
Have you done previous surveys that you have to compare this number to? I mean, how prevalent is it today compared to even just maybe a few years ago?
The last survey that we ran was 1 year prior and included one initial question. We asked participants, to the best of your knowledge, have any of your friends or classmates ever used AI tools to generate nudes of other kids? And 1 in 10 actually at that point already said, yes, this was happening. So there's a lot of everyday great uses for generative AI, but that means that we are all becoming very familiar with the technology and it's really easily accessible.
What are the consequences of these deepfake nudes for teenagers?
So the consequences are really concrete. They are resulting in young people being bullied with the images that they are being shared online, and at times that distribution can be quite widespread. There's a lot of concern and fear among those who have experienced this type of abuse that content can live on and is available for anybody to find and to reshare. So the impacts of these images, despite their synthetic origin, are very real. The distribution is real, and oftentimes the person looking at the image has no idea that the act depicted is a result of generative AI technologies. And because of the nature of technology, it means that it is happening in schools, it is happening at home, it can follow young people at home. And we are seeing specific examples where deepfake nudes are used in service of additional coercion or extortion. We have several cases where in sextortion events, the victim has shared that the images, they never created them, but rather it is somebody coming back with a deep fake and using that to extort potentially money from them, additional images, or in some cases to meet in person to engage in other forms of abuse or exploitation.
And I imagine someone just trying to say that that's not real really isn't doing the trick to stop the bullying, stop the scamming or extortion either.
Yeah, whether or not that image resulted from a specific event, what it depicts and people sharing it and collecting it is a very real experience. When we think about, maybe as an example, people who have hidden cameras in dressing rooms or in bathrooms, the fact that that person recorded was not physically touched does not take away from the violation of privacy and the clear public safety risk that poses for anyone who is being recorded and then potentially having those videos shared in explicit moments without their consent.
Is there a real life example that, you're allowed to share, obviously not names or anything, but that can give us just an idea of what this looks like when it happens?
So you can find several of them in the media now. We have cases coming out of Florida, New Jersey, Spain, California, Texas, all instances where, number one, cases of minors within communities using this technology to create deepfake nudes of their peers and what happens in response to that. Unfortunately, too often the response from the community, whether that is local law enforcement, schools, parents within the communities, has not been sufficiently grounded in the victim's experience and been sufficiently trauma informed to ensure that there is not shaming or blaming happening for the victim depicted, and that we are correctly responding to what has taken place. Unfortunately, there are also cases where beyond even peers within communities, there are adults which are using images that they have either gotten by recording offline or by pulling them off of the internet where they may be publicly available, ranging from social media sites to school websites that have, say, team photos depicted, and using those benign images to create explicit child sexual abuse material for their own purposes.
And this is going to be a controversial topic, but there is kind of that debate about whether adults should be posting images of their children on social media. Does, what you just talked about play into that decision making for adults?
It is important for adults to be aware of how images that are shared could be used. But as I said, we also see cases where it doesn't require somebody sharing an image on social media or not, that at this point, some of these images are being created because of someone photographing the child at a park or a neighbor recording the child without their permission or their awareness. So there are unfortunately other means, and simply not posting will not completely eliminate the risk of these experiences, but I think it is an important consideration, whether it is young people making decisions about what they choose to share online, their personal image or their information, or the adults in their lives.
It's got to be frustrating because even if a child or a parent does everything quote unquote right, they don't get a smartphone until later, or they learn to never post inappropriate things. It seems like AI is making it possible for everyone to become a victim in this way. Someone else just creates something that never actually happened. So how do parents and teens and children even start to protect themselves when this is a possibility?
Technology has changed the game. I mean, that is a very concrete reality that we're facing right now. And we have to have active conversations with the young people in our lives that helps them recognize where risk may exist, empowers them with that knowledge and with understanding of what they could do if they are confronted by a risk such as this. And really importantly, making sure that we have a very strong foundation with the young people in our lives, that they're confident they are better off looking to an adult in their life for help and support rather than feeling like they should try and handle these situations on their own. That type of isolation is leading to really severe and sometimes life-altering consequences that we need to actively be working to address.
So the conversation is partly, if something like this happens, it's a possibility. Come to me. We'll get through this together. You're making sure that you're offering that support. Is there anything else you want to make sure you get into that conversation?
Those are really important parts of it. I think reinforcing that no matter what decisions you made, you are not to blame, and you have an open door to me, and we are going to get through this together. It is also important to be thinking of our young people and how they navigate risks, not only from if they were to be targeted as a potential victim, but making sure that our young people are aware of how to safely and responsibly use technology. While most of the kids we talked to in this survey felt clear that creating deepfakes of another person was wrong for a number of reasons, there was still nearly 1 in 6 who said that they thought it was okay in at least some circumstances. That means we not only need to be thinking about our young people and how they might be targeted for abuse, but how they might be unintentionally creating really significant harms for their peers because they're not fully aware of the consequences of this type of behavior.
Still ahead, what the data shows about how girls and boys are often targeted with this a bit differently, and what that Take It Down Act Congress passed this week is really all about. Plus, why AI might just be one of the solutions to a problem it created. But first, a quick break for our sponsors. As busy parents, I know you do not want to have one more thing to think about, which is why it's so great that Hiya sends their vitamins straight to your door each month. But even more than that, I chose Hiya because, unlike other children's vitamins that basically seem like candy in disguise, Hiya's has 0 sugar and 0 gummy junk. I also love knowing Hiya is helping to support my son's immune system, energy, brain function, mood, concentration, teeth, and more. We have both the best-selling children's vitamins and the probiotics. And if you're tired of battling with your kids to eat their greens, Hiya now has Kids Daily Greens and Superfoods. It's a chocolate-flavored greens powder designed specifically for kids, packed with more than 55 whole food ingredients to support brain power, development, and digestion. Just scoop, shake, and sip with milk or any non-dairy beverage for a delicious and nutritious boost your kids will actually enjoy. We've worked out a special deal with Hiya for their best-selling children's vitamin. Receive 50% off your first order. To claim this deal, you must go to hiyahealth.com/newsworthy. The deal is not available on their regular website, so go to Hiya Health, HIYAHEALTH.com/newsworthy and get your kids the full body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults. The Newsworthy is also brought to you by Skims. As someone who mostly works from home and as a mom, I basically live in t-shirts, but have struggled with the quality and fit until I found Skims. Skims cotton tees are now one of my wardrobe essentials. My most recent get is the cotton jersey long sleeve tee. It's soft, comfortable, and never rides up. Plus, it's flattering and looks great. I always appreciate something I can wear on its own or for layering. My closet is filled up with Skims now for good reason. From that cotton jersey long sleeve to the soft lounge fold-over pant and tank to the fits everybody black tee to the long slip dress, Skims has all the perfect go-tos for my everyday clothes when I want to be comfortable yet stylish. Try it for yourself and see. Shop Skims tees as well as their ultimate bra collection and more at skims.com and Skims LA flagship on Sunset Boulevard. After you place your order, be sure to let them know we sent you, select podcast in the survey, and be sure to select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. Now back to my conversation with Melissa Strobel from the nonprofit Thorn. Are there, most vulnerable people, whether that be for the victims or for the perpetrators, any specific scenarios or traits that make someone more vulnerable to this?
Any group is vulnerable. Girls are disproportionately impacted. We have seen over the last several years a surge in financially motivated sextortion events, and those disproportionately target teenage boys.
Congress just passed a bipartisan bill called the Take It Down Act. Can you talk about what it actually is and what are some of the pros and cons, or do you think it will actually make a difference when we're talking about these scenarios?
This is introducing penalties for knowingly publishing generative AI explicit imagery of someone or threatening to do so in an attempt to coerce or intimidate. It also places requirements on platforms to be efficiently removing this imagery. This is an important step forward in holding offenders and tech platforms accountable and giving victims a clearer path to justice. And it sends a really important message. Using technology to harm or exploit kids is a serious crime, even when generative AI technologies are involved. Unfortunately, we've seen a lot of pretty polarizing debate in the public narrative about if it's okay to create deepfake nudes of someone or not. The institutional response to these behaviors is a really important pillar in society deciding to either normalize this behavior or not. So there's certainly more work to be done, but this law reflects important progress to make sure that we're giving kids stronger protections in a digital age.
Probably somewhat ironically, AI is a big tool in actually finding these images to then take them down.
That is completely true. The simple reality is that this is an issue where being able to scale our response is critical to keeping up with the risks as they are evolving. Our ability to detect threats like child sexual abuse material and to remove it play a critical role. Think about if you had a fire in your house, lacking functioning smoke detectors distributed at the right points through your house, that fire can spread rapidly and it can get to a point where you aren't able to contain it after that. But having those smoke detectors installed creates an early warning system before potentially you or your family are in danger. And AI technologies play similar roles in making sure that we keep abusive material off the internet.
And maybe that's part of our conversation too, is if you see something like this, don't share it.
100%. The bottom line is no matter what, this imagery should not be reshared. And if you come across it, you should report it to the platform and to law enforcement.
How can parents and even communities respond better when something like this does happen? How do they help their own child or someone in the community?
So starting by raising awareness that deepfake nude abuse is wrong and it is harmful. It is not a joke. The impacts are not fake. The next step that we can be taking is engaging with systems within our communities, such as schools. For the cases we've seen, oftentimes they happen in clusters within neighborhoods and schools. And so schools may be some of the first to be aware that this is happening. It's really important that schools have policies in place that ensure that their reaction is swift and victim-centered to make sure that they are safeguarding their community effectively.
Anything else that you want to add or just a final thought?
Generative AI offers opportunities to be creating a host of different forms of content. It can create text, it can create imagery, it is increasingly capable of creating audio and voice. It is not at the point yet that it is as convincing as an image, but we are trending in that direction. So it's really important for parents to be aware of the fact that they might be seeing something with their own eyes or hearing it with their own ears, and it might look like their child, it might sound like their child. We don't want to create a world where our kids are more concerned that their parents will react to what they see in front of them and not believe their child and what they're telling them. We don't want cases where kids are saying, I never shared that image, and their parents' response to seeing what is in fact a deepfake image, whether explicit or not, or potentially hearing an audio recording, that their response is, I told you not to do that. You should have known better. You should have been smarter than this. We have too many cases where that is either what a child actually experiences or it's what they expect to experience. And that is creating barriers to our kids turning to us for support. And that's one of the reasons why we try and reinforce the importance of saying, no matter what, we will be there for them to help walk through what comes next.
Thank you so much to our guest today. Definitely go check out the research and resources over at thorn.org. If you're a parent, you can specifically go to parents.thorn.org for more. Thank you so much for listening today. Join us again during the week when we bring you a straightforward, easy-to-digest roundup of the day's news every Monday through Friday. We'll be back on Monday with the latest things to know. Until then, have a great rest of your weekend.